Thanks everyone for joining us today. So we do know Star Wars Limited is home to some amazing artists. We got some of the best artwork in TCGs today. So we're gonna get to know them. So let's begin to learn a little bit about our artist friends here. If you guys each want to introduce yourselves and tell us how you got involved with Star Wars Unlimited as well.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, I'm Petchock, and I got involved with Star Wars Unlimited since the beginning, about 4 years ago now. I sat down on my computer one afternoon, opened up my email, and very top of my inbox, the subject line read, "Inquiry about art for a Star Wars game," from art director Jeff Johnson. And I've been with it since. And it's been a dream come true project since I've been a big Star Wars fan since I was a kid.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Zavala. I actually ended up in this project almost by luck because I was telling them that I don't really do like stylized artwork for most of my work. I did an experiment about doing a stylized image for myself, and they found that somehow. And they were like, "Are you interested in it?" I was kind of scared because I said, "That's not my style, but I can try it," and we did. And since then, I've been working with them for a couple of years, and it's been great.
Hello everyone, I'm Aitor. I am an artist from Barcelona. And I first started in Star Wars, well, since the earliest beginning as well, like Kyle, because I was already working for Fantasy Flight for other projects, and they told me that they were preparing a new project. They showed me the visual guide, and I absolutely loved it. So I said that I was in, and since then I've been working for them, and I am really, really happy on how it's going.
Hi everyone, my name is RENO, I'm from France. Is it too long? Oh no, it's fine?
Good.
That's okay. Great. I work for Star Wars Unlimited since 2 years now, and it's the better job I ever had, really. I always dreamed to work from Star Wars, and it's not a movie, but it's close enough for me, and it's even better, because there's so much content, so it's great. So thank you for being here. I'm glad to be here, and voila.
Yeah, we're happy all you guys could join us today. I know you guys are all over the world at points. Each of you has your own unique artistic style. So with that, how do you adapt your personal artistic vision while still maintaining the distinct look and feel for Star Wars Unlimited?
So, I think the style that I had going into Star Wars Unlimited was already in the ballpark of what Fantasy Flight Games was looking for when they contacted me. And I've been happy to adapt my style and work to whatever needs they require for the card art. And I'm easy to work with. I love taking direction and trying out new techniques and little tricks here and there to improve my work. So I'd like to say I've grown a lot as an artist from the beginning of this project up until today. It's been a wonderful experience working with the art directors and everybody on the team.
I would say, I think, like I just said, my style is honestly a bit more photoreal, almost photographic because my background is on film. But one of the things that happens when you work on film is you have to be very versatile from project to project, because some people want something a bit more stylized for their film, and some others want something extremely photoreal. So having the ability to be able to change style, I think most professional artists can do it, because they just study that style, they observe it enough that they can be like, okay, I think I can replicate it and adapt and be it. So even though it's not my main style, I was able to adapt it. I mean, almost challenge myself in order to grow up as an artist too. So that's how I at least approach it.
Absolutely. I can't help thinking the same. But in addition, I would say that yeah, the versatility is super important. You have to try to keep like your identity in the artwork and to preserve your style, because at the end it is you. But it's really, really important, as you say, that you have to look at the rest of the artists and try to make something that works as a wall, because at the end the project is not about you, it's about all the artists. And it's interesting to create something that has harmony with the rest of them. So adapting your style to the project is one of the main goals.
Okay, the blank.
No worries.
Same as them. Same. I was a comic illustrator for 20 years, so it was quite natural for me to adapt to the world of Star Wars. And I was always was a big fan of Star Wars, so it was absolutely natural. And I like to work in a world of constraints. I don't know if I'm clear. Constraint. I like narrow frames because it entices you to push the you have to find the little spot where you can add some personality to the composition, to the subject you are shooting. And I find the exercise very, very, very exciting.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
Good. All right, so now we talk a little bit about how you guys got started. I'd love to hear about like the art process and how you guys go about those processes of bringing a card to life. So can you walk us through that personal process on creating art for the game? And how do you typically start, and how does that evolve as time goes on to bring it to completion?
So my process, I've kind of fine-tuned over the years. One thing that works for me starting off a piece is, well, first of all, it can be overwhelming when you're staring at a blank canvas and figuring out what's supposed to go where. So something that I've adapted to my personal process is starting off small, because I find it's much easier to sketch the composition on a small scale. It's less overwhelming, and being an overthinker, someone who's dealt with anxiety for most of his past, it just helps me sort of confine everything in a small space. And then once I've got the composition set, and once it's approved by the art director, then I pretty much just blow it up to meet the edges of the canvas. And then I start laying in details, the pencil stage, and then, I submit that step. It gets approved, or sometimes there's revisions that are needed back and forth. Then when that's all set to go, then I go in with the clean inks, basically tracing over all of the pencils to get the line art ready for the last step, which is the colors and any last minute special effects and stuff like that.
Yes.
These fantastic artists, I've been doing this probably my whole life too. At some point, you know how you work, you understand your own process, and it's hard to veer away from that. So I know every single step of the way, and it's usually the same with every single time. I will lay out a couple of sketches. They are rough because the intention is not to polish yet. You want to show a few ideas and be like, is this the right direction? Do you think this is interesting, fun? Sometimes it's not. To try again, right? One of the things that happens as an artist is that you will rarely get it on the first time. It doesn't matter what gig is, because the point is providing options for the client. Be like, okay, I think this is the vision I had in my head, right? You're trying to find that sweet spot that they're looking for, and once we do this, through the process of sketching, and once they find one that they kind of like, I just take it to the next step. I do very quick sketches because I know I take longer rendering my cards. I'm just nuts when it comes to the details, and I like to be as accurate to all the Star Wars subject matter that is assigned to me. I mostly do ships, so I take the most painful time researching if the panel is in the right way, or things like that, because I know fans care, and I know we want to make sure that what we represent is accurate to the source material. So that's mostly how I approach it.
Yeah, I will say that my process is kind of similar, but in addition, I will say also that, first of all, I research for a lot of references, since for me it's really, really important to represent the idea in a good way and to understand the mood of the illustration that I want to do. And after that, I always look for some dynamism and interesting composition and play with contrasts, since it's a really important part for me. After that, I start doing the sketches, and when it gets approved, the inks and the colors. But that is more like natural, that flows pretty smoothly. For me, the most important part is to represent the idea in a clear concept since the earliest beginning.
For me, I'm quite impatient, so I try to. I'm quite impatient. I want to go very fast to the details because it's what I like to make, and but I don't trust myself too much, and I try to think about the composition just in my head at the beginning for quite a long time. I'm asking myself what would be the best staging for to accompany anyway. And sorry, it's so full. I do a lot of research too. I have a lot of references, and I have some sort of personal rule that I forbid myself to use exactly the staging of a particular shot in a movie or in a series. I don't want to reproduce the exact same angle you will find in any medium. And so it's not always simple because when you have a difficult likeness or a complex shape, it's not always easy to step away from the initial reference. And but I use 3D, basic 3D that allow me to install the background, the volume, get some basic ideas of lighting and composition with this, because I can play very easily to find the best angle like this. And then after that, I do rough, quite detailed, maybe a bit too much. But it's how I work and how I like it.
That's great. Yeah, nice.
Awesome. And we talked a little bit about art directors and some of those answers too. So how do you guys work with the game's art directors to ensure that the artwork aligns with the mechanics and themes of the game too?
So over the course of this project, I've worked mostly with Kate Swazi on the artwork for this game. But I initially started out working with Jeff Johnson on set 1. And then after that, I think he moved on to another project. So me and Kate got paired, and we've been working together for the last 3 years. Kate's direction has really helped me a lot to grow as an artist. Every little bit of advice or every bit of every revision that she sends back, corrections, tips on how to improve a certain area of the piece, I always take that to heart because I know it's going to help me out the next time. And if I ever, for example, draw a character multiple times throughout the game, I think back to that last time, like, oh, I'm going to remember to implement this. I remember what she said about that. And yeah, she's just been really, really excellent to work with on the art.
Yes.
Yeah, working with an art director is always a team. It's a team effort, right? One will guide you, and one will guide you, one will execute. And what I think one of the best moments that happen when it doesn't have to be just, this project specifically, but any type of, project in the world. When you work with an art director and you find the sweet spot where both of you, it's almost hard to describe, both of you fall into this rhythm where one gives a nose and you almost nail it because you understand how, they think, And I think the best way to work with an art director is not just listening to the brief. You almost have to know the person because the person will say you a lot of things unconsciously of, oh, this is something that I enjoy, why don't we try to put this on a card, right? They may reference a movie like, oh, I love some Disney movie or something, why don't we try this approach? And when you listen to those words, you pay attention to those little details that will help that nail the piece. I had the pleasure to work with Steven Sommers and Steve Hamilton here, and it's always been awesome. They give us insane amount of freedom to propose, which I think that's just one of the reasons that the project looks amazing because they do allow the artists to be like, okay, go nuts with this. We want to see what you can do, and we as artists love to challenge ourselves, so we also make our assignments more difficult than we have to because we want to, and trying to give you guys the best artwork that we can do.
We'll see.
Yeah, in my case, I think exactly the same. I agree totally. In my career, I had a lot of art directors, and I have to say that in Fantasy Flight, we have really, really good art directors. It's really easy to work with them. They give you really clear feedback of what they want. They even do some paint overs to explain you what they need, and they have a really clear idea in mind, and that's really, really convenient. In terms of the mechanics of the game, we know which kind of card we are going to illustrate because there are several kind of cards in the game. And besides, we work with a great bleed area that allows the illustration to be used for other purposes. So that's really, really convenient in terms of using the illustration for the right purposes and the right mechanics.
In terms of art direction, I don't have your experience because I was working in the comics in France, and it was a very solitary activity without any feedback, daily feedback like I could have now. And it's so much more rewarding to work like this with someone like Steve, and because it you narrow down what works in your work. And you just really, really great. But about the gameplay and what honestly, I didn't have too much thought about this. I just tried to stick the most possible to the briefing, which is very precise, and to make the better match possible. And the gameplay is just secondary for me. Just
Awesome. All right, now Star Wars is such an iconic franchise, just over decades now. So how do you approach creating artwork for characters or scenes that fans already have really strong attachments to? And is there ever a pressure to meet fan expectations for something like this?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of pressure, and just me personally, I think that's pressure I put on myself most of the time, but I think that pressure is needed because without that, I don't think we can grow as artists without either external or internal pressure. And me personally, like I said, I really want to get the piece looking the best that it can, and which is why I try to be as easy to work with as possible with the art directors. So that way I can not only make their life easier, but the whole process run more smoothly. And that way the final product can be something that fans are really, really excited about. This weekend has been a testament of that, hearing people say how much they love the art on the game since, the first set up until the recent set 5 release. And it's just super rewarding to hear all the positive feedback that people give you, and it makes the whole, all the hard work worth it in the end.
I think that Star Wars fans have a very sharp eye when it comes to understanding these characters. And in my instance, I mostly do spaceships. But this property has been with us for decades now, right? So fans know the details, know that if something is off, it could have been better, right? So we take the effort to, like we mentioned in the past, to reference it as much as possible because we want to deliver the most accurate version of what people already know and then give it a spin with the Star Wars Unlimited style. But like I said, Star Wars fans know their stuff, and we just want to deliver what the expectations already are. If the Falcon in A New Hope has a round dish, we're not going to change it to the sequel's dish, which is like a rectangle, and those kinds of things. We're not trying to change the lore or anything like that. We wanted to keep it consistent because fans enjoy it, we enjoy it, and that's just how it is. It's just fun, and it almost forces us to be like, you gotta be good at this. You really need to understand the details of this in order to deliver those expectations. Luckily, these guys are amazing, so they do it.
Yeah, as always, I agree with everything you say. To add something different to the table, I will say that in my case, in my personal case, sometimes I tend a little bit to the caricature because I love cartoons, and being able to adapt myself to being more realistic and to achieve that likeness in the characters is a really, really important point because the fans know the characters and everyone wants to have exactly like the character exactly like they know it from the shows and the movies. So it's really, really important to pay a lot of attention to all the details. And even though it can be like a small feature that you don't notice in a first look, being able to notice every single detail, it's really, really important to achieve that likeness that make that those iconic characters are the way they are.
I knew since the beginning that the expectations were quite high, and but I really like the challenge of having something that people know, and you have to be the most precise possible. But on another subject, when I make illustration for Star Wars, I always have in my mind all the artists I admire in the past that have made such great pieces. I think I forgot obviously all the names, but maybe Drew Struzan, who made the posters for movies, and for me it's Star Wars, and I always have him like a little Yoda in the corner of my head, guiding me when I am drawing my stuff. And yeah, I hope I'm up to the task. And no, that's it.
And I think Reno actually just touched on this too, but I was going to ask, like, given the rich history of Star Wars art, how do you draw inspiration from the past while still bringing, new, fresh things to the table?
So one thing I do to get inspiration is, obviously researching a lot of reference photos, and luckily the art directors with Fantasy Flight Games provide a lot of really good references to use, and I'm super meticulous, so I try my best not to miss any detail in a character or a vehicle I might be drawing, and sometimes I'll, go back to something over and over again, double, triple check to make sure I've not left anything out. Another thing I do is I love to rewatch the movies. Some of my favorites, like I've been fortunate enough to draw a lot of ships and scenes from Rogue One, which is my favorite Star Wars film. So watching the movies and watching my favorite scenes are a great way to get inspiration, to kind of immerse yourself in the scene as it's happening, and then to go to the drawing board afterwards or during. Sometimes it's fun to just let the movie play in the background as you're working, because you know what's happening. You've seen it, we've all seen these movies so many times. But yeah, that's a big way I get inspiration for the work that I do.
I am a Star Wars nut. I would just say that I love Star Wars. I watched these movies so many times. I could tell you the weirdest trivia, like people wearing jeans on the backdrop of some scene. It's just wild. I live for these movies, so it's perfect for me to work on this. I reference, like kind of just said, I reference hard as much as I can because you just have to. I didn't come up with this universe. It's already an X-Wing looks the way it looks, so you should try to stick the way it looks. In terms of personal art, I grew up with animated features. I love House, Moving Castle, Akira, I love Disney movies. And that almost translates to what I do because when I see my work, I try to imagine it as a still frame from an animated movie, but it just looks like, but it just happens to be Star Wars, right? So I try that out a lot because that's just what I like, that's just what I enjoy. And that's essentially it, that's just my main approach of how I do things.
Being Star Wars such a great saga, and with such a wide variety of illustrations and art styles, it's difficult to separate your work from all the things that are already done, because everything is really, really iconic. So I think it's really important to see all these references, to understand them, but then try to create your own point of view. I think that the best way for achieving this, in my case, is to try to imagine the illustration in a complete different way that we can see it in the movies or shows. Trying to find a new angle or trying to find a new dynamic, moving a little bit the horizon, like in a diagonal, trying to achieve more, something more dynamic, or trying to pose the character in a new way in order to make it more interesting, changing the background. Small little things that can make the illustration unique, because you don't want to do exactly the same that has been done, but you want to create something new with the same spirit, the same essence.
I could have answered exactly the same as you do, because yeah, I'm totally absolute Star Wars fan, and I need to immerse myself when I draw the cards. So I regularly put one movie or another, essentially for the music and the sound. The sound in Star Wars is so important, and I want to hear it when I make an ATST or whatever Imperial Destroyer. I want to hear the Imperial March. I really want, no, it's kind of caricatural, but it's true. I really want to feel it, to try the most possible to put it on the, I would say in the paper, not the paper. But, yeah. Did I answer?
Yeah, I think you're good.
That's fine. Okay.
Now, Star Wars is known for its larger-than-life characters, whether it be Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Yoda. So how do you guys bring to life in a new artistic form? And how do you balance staying true to their legacy while giving them your own unique spin?
Interesting question. So what I do to give a lot of these iconic characters and ships a unique spin is, I think as an artist you have to trust yourself and trust your own personal process, as we discussed before, and just your own personal style, whether it's evolving through the game or you're keeping it pretty consistent. I think it's important to really know yourself and know what you bring to the table and how that's a unique addition to a larger whole amongst a variety of different amazing art styles. And I mean, I say it all the time, I'm grateful to be a part of all this with these amazing artists sitting right here, and many others who are not here today. But yeah, it's been a real privilege and dream come true for me.
Follow the question. Sorry about that.
No worries. So just talking about like these bigger characters like Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Yoda. How do you make it unique?
Right. I do it a lot by trial and failure, and I would say more failure than trial, because that's how you gauge slowly, how you slowly approach to that one illustration that you can do. So I tried as many angles or compositions as possible. Half of them I know don't work. Even when I deliver them, I know they won't work. But once I submit it, whatever feedback I get will help me be like, okay, this is probably the direction. But I do try to experiment as much as I can, because if we go back to something that Reed said, is that we don't want to just replicate a scene that's already in the movie. If we wanted to do that, well, let's just watch the film. And it's going to be fun. But the whole idea is, how do we present this? Is like, well, rotate the camera, rotate the character, change the light around it, change the color saturation, or the lighting, whatever. We just the idea is what I'm trying to say is, I just try to experiment as much as I can in order to find that sweet spot, because the reality is it takes a while to find that image in your head. It's just how it is. You don't just imagine Luke doing a somersault instantly. You can, and you will have probably a first image, but the reason we do sketches is to get away from that first image that we have in our head, explore things that we didn't even consider in the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah, a part of everything that has been said, that I agree that you have to change the angle, you have to try a new vision. I think that the style of the game is one of the most vital parts for this, because you're gonna get the character with the same likeness, it's gonna look exactly the same with the features, but the thing that is gonna make it unique is your point of view and the style of the whole project. I think that it mixes really well the comic book style with more render, with a really clear and unique point of light, contrast, and well, mostly render. That I think that makes all the pieces like to be visually appealing, and that is gonna make that the characters, even though they are exactly the same as in the movies, they are gonna look different. And plus, if you change a little bit the pose, the environment, and the angle, everything is gonna work really good together.
I don't know if I can answer directly to this question, but the really fun part in this project, in this game, is for us, to create those scenes between the scene that everyone knows, and you have to interpolate what doesn't exist in the movies or in the show. And that's what is really, really, really exciting, because you have the little impression that you are the master of this universe for one little moment, and that's what is really, really, really exciting. And the most fun, sometimes on certain iconic scenes with huge characters like Luke, Leia, etc. It's not that easy to switch to something really different. But the most fun is when it's a more obscure character, less known, and there you can really take it and make it something different, or take a rebel character and make it like it was a character of a show or a movie, and it's really, really fun, really fun. Mm.
Yes.
Yeah, and that completely leads into my next question. The one cool thing about Star Wars Unlimited is it's not just like these main characters. They're all over the galaxy, different medias that have come out, whether it be video games, cartoons, movies, it's all over the place. It's like Reno was just touching on too. So how do you guys approach designing the art for those lesser known characters?
So I would say to approach more obscure characters in the game, a big part of it is looking at, again, reference photos, but one thing I do is if a certain character has been drawn in a previous set, I kind of like to look at what another artist did and how they approached this lesser known vehicle or character that maybe not many people are familiar with. And I try to see what I can do differently than what they did to bring my own unique perspective and, applying my personal style to it. And I think it's important to not only touch on the main characters like Luke and Vader and Yoda, but I think some of the more obscure characters and ships are just as important to include in the greater Star Wars Unlimited gameplay because, maybe prior to playing the game, people were not super familiar with like the Jazarian Starhopper was one of the cards I did in set 4. I certainly wasn't. So it was kind of a fun little challenge to draw something for the first time, and I've done that a lot throughout the game. I'm like, oh wow, I've never drawn this before. So it's all a big learning curve, and I think you just have to be able to adapt very quickly and make adjustments quickly so that way you can, turn out the result and, of course, meet the deadline in time.
Yeah, I absolutely love all the more obscure characters and ships in the Star Wars world. When I grew up, and I used to collect the action figures, the little ones, plastic ones, I think they were Kenner, I can't remember. I never got like a Luke or a Han. Maybe I had a couple, but I was like, no, I want that obscure character. What were those bounty hunters from Empire Strikes Back? I wanted those because they just felt more interesting in my head. And when I saw those films, I was like, well, I wonder what's their deal. How does this guy even eat? What's and I thought that was fascinating, especially as a kid. You come up with all of these little stories, right? So when we have a chance to depict this lesser known characters or ships, it's just an opportunity again for them to shine. For me specifically to be like, oh, I can finally show the world all these little characters that I used to play as a kid because I just, enjoyed it so much. And everyone, not just kids, when they see a piece of artwork, they can infuse it with some backstory, in their own heads, even if it's just for a split of a second. And I think that can be very valuable because you expand the galaxy beyond the classic characters like Luke, Leia, and it's just interesting when you encounter a card like, oh, I don't recognize this character. Then you go back to the film and it's like, oh, it's that one, that guy with the weirdest head in the world, he's just in the back, right? Things like that. I think it's just fun thing to bring them into the light and for them to have their moment also to shine.
Well said.
I like to draw iconic characters, but for me it's an absolute pleasure being able to do like an unknown character or even to create a new character. Because you have the possibility to add your own point of view to the project, to the Star Wars universe, and that feels like magic. Because it's like the true moment, the true time that you are like creating something absolutely new. Even though that you have a lot of references and it has to be a specific alien race, for example, with a specific kind of costume, you can be creative and do it your way. And I really love that because when I put it together with the rest of characters, I feel like I am doing something important. And that is so, so rewarding, to being able to create something, even though it's a really small piece. I think it's magical. Yeah, I love that. And it's really interesting because you can have, you don't have to worry that much about nailing the features because you are illustrating, for example, an alien race, and you can play a little bit with the features of the face and make it a little bit longer, play with the shape a little bit of the eyes, and create something new. And let your imagination fly, and also imagine like a new story for that character and go big with it. And I think that that's amazing.
All that was said, I agree totally. for first, but it's the time where I have to make a shout out to Wikipedia because it's my it's my main resource for Star Wars lore, and each time I step upon obscure character, I fell on Wikipedia and I spend hours and hours because I go from one article to one another and it's terrible and it's make me very late. But anyway, and I love this. I love this because it allows me to explore the lore and with the excitation that I will be able to illustrate it after that. And yeah, there was this character Dengar, which is an obscure character you see in the first movie, just 1 second or 2 seconds between Boba Fett and Darth Vader. And he has a poor costume, which is not very great, just it's made with bottle of milk and just a tissue on his neck. And but it's so fun to see and the references because when it's about the old movie, particularly. You discover at which point the costume was so made with nothing, and it's so fun to give them some kind of, how can I say, dignity and nobility by drawing them carefully, lighting them carefully, and it's a great part of this job. And I have a...
Very cool. Going into the next one though, what's been the biggest challenge for you when working on Star Wars Unlimited?
So for me, I think a big challenge has been tackling a lot of the vehicle artwork that I've been assigned over the course of the game, because before Star Wars Unlimited, I had never drawn a lot of these things before. So going back to what I said before about the process being a learning curve, it really is, especially when you're drawing a ship with a lot of details in it. Going back to as well, using a lot of reference photos and looking at the ship or character from every possible angle you can find. Like I sometimes spend a long time scouring the internet looking for as many references as I can. And how I approach drawing ships is, I think that first of all, you have to be really observant while looking at references. Like you have to break down the basic shapes that make up the vehicle, or for example, if you're drawing like a clone trooper mask, you have to really look and see like what are the basic shapes that make up this ship or this character, and then you kind of just simplify it from there and build upon the basic forms. And I think RENO mentioned it before, we all have the tendency sometimes, I think, to jump ahead into detail too quickly sometimes. So we have to like reel ourselves back and remind ourselves like, oh, we can't skip the important step, which is laying the groundwork for the artwork, which is identifying the basic forms and shapes that make up the structures. And then once that's all set and you've gotten approval from the art director, then moving forward it's much more smooth because it's just about adding detail on top of that foundation.
Probably like everyone who's an artist, not just us, but maybe people in the room, I do suffer from heavy imposter syndrome. That's usually a very big barriers that I have to overcome every single time. But at the same time, I trust myself enough to be like, I know I will tackle it somehow. And I feel that feeling of, I'm a little scared about this task, like Aitor just said a couple questions ago about encountering the blank canvas, right? Because it could be anything on your head, or the potential for the image to be there is practically infinite. So the best way I can do it, and this is also something really like Kyle just mentioned, is breaking things down. Like how do I make this manageable, right? And for me, it's like if I have to do a ship, I'll just break it down first on the shapes. I don't need to understand the background. I don't need to understand the rendering. I don't need to understand the lighting yet. There will be a point for that, but for me, I need to make things manageable first in order for me to have a quick idea of what I want to get. So usually the challenge for me is mostly how do I step away from my own imposter syndrome and start working on it, right? And I will say, never rely on motivation. Just work it even if you fail, because that will yield some results even if you fail. So by doing stuff, you will, even if it's not the final, you will still end up doing stuff that is valuable for the project. Yeah.
In my case, I'm not gonna go that deep. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be really honest. And the thing is that I struggle with bookies. I love them. They are great, but I struggle with them sometimes because I think they are really difficult creatures to illustrate because they are plenty of fur, and sometimes it's difficult to find the right point for the articulations, you know, the hands are hidden, the face is hidden by the fur as well. They have this kind of difficult face to illustrate that it's a mix between a dog and a person. So it's dog-like and person-like, and finding that balance and make it work, sometimes it's difficult. At the end, it works, but all the process trying to figure it out, how to do all the fur and how to do the face, is something that is quite challenging.
For me, quite pragmatically, it's the likeness of iconic characters. Because everyone knows them, everyone likes them, and you have to be faithful to the likeness without being uncanny, and sometimes it's just so difficult. Because when you try to make a different staging, to try to make a point of view from below, yeah, you lose completely the likeness, and it's a nightmare to retrieve it. Because you have the references, usually from face, front, three-quarter, and when you try something more exotic, it became very, very, very challenging to keep this. And I didn't imagine before that Harrison Ford was that hard to make. Really, I thought it was an easy face, but no, no, really not. But,
Awesome. Cisco, we're running out of time, but a couple of quick hits. What's been your favorite card that you've had a chance to create so far, or have we not seen it yet?
Well, so far, of all the cards that have been released between sets 1 and 5, I'd say my top 2 would probably be the Django Fett Leader Showcase from set 3. Actually, when I drew that card, I wasn't even told that it would be a leader card. I was just given the prompt, Django Fett alternate, and I kind of just went with it. And then seeing how well it worked on the showcase leader card layout, I'm like, it's somehow it's like I knew when I was planning out the composition and the pose that it would somehow work really well. So that was a big surprise. And then in the recent set that just released, the Darth Vader card definitely was one of my favorites because that was the first time I got to, you know, draw one of the really important IPs in the whole Star Wars franchise. And it was intimidating because I knew that there would probably be a lot of feedback going back and forth on it because, you know, I was told that, yeah, Lucasfilm's very picky about how he's supposed to look. But I think, you know, like Stephen was saying about having imposter syndrome, I definitely suffer from that as well, as I'm sure a lot of artists do, but you just have to learn and be aware enough to ignore, you know, those thoughts and just trust yourself that you're gonna make it to the finish line. You know, no matter how many rounds of edits have to go back and forth, you're gonna get to the final product and it's gonna, you know, look exactly how you pictured it in your head.
Favorite card, I think I have probably a couple. Definitely the first one I ever did, which is an ATST, is Walking Through Endor. I really just like it a lot because probably the meaning of it, right? It was my first card. It was really fun. I probably spent more time on that card compared to the rest because I needed to find a new workflow for this time. It is my understanding that it's not
have a very used car anymore compared to some of the newer ones, and that makes me sad, but that's fine. One of the persons who came to our booth was like, I still keep it on my deck even though it doesn't work. It's like, you know what? I like it. I don't like that. And the other one is the Bonnerig Interceptor. It's a red TIE fighter from Star Wars Resistance. It fulfills two criteria for me. It's a relatively obscure ship, and it's an Imperial ship, right? The Imperials just have defense toys, so I just love to do anything that's related to the Empire. So yeah, I would say those two.
Great.
In my case, I made several iconic characters, but this time I'm gonna go for something smaller. And I really like how came up the Love Cat that I did for set 5. It's a promo card, and I really like it because it's just a small character, just a cute cat, playing and messing around, and it's like, I don't know, it's kind of naive and innocent and natural, and I really like it. Yeah, sometimes it's better just to enjoy these little tiny moments and not going that big. And I don't know, I think that's a really nice story and a nice card. And I'm proud of it.
It's a bit the same for me because I've made 2 cute creatures. I have made one Ewok piece where there's a family reunion around the chief, and it was the occasion to make very different ambient atmosphere. It's very cozy, cute, and cozy. So I like it very much. And there's the porg. Because it's the stupidest card in the game. There is nothing written on it, and it's just a porg. And it's just fun.
I love it. Good job.
All right, and to wrap things up, if there is one character or vehicle you can create a card for, which would it be?
Ooh, a lot of things to choose from here. If I could create a card for a character that I haven't done yet, that's a tough choice. There's a lot of characters I would love to draw in future sets, but I think definitely one I would love to do is either Yoda or Luke Skywalker. If I had the chance, I would love to be able to draw either one of them.
Yep, nice. That's a good choice.
It's a good question. Definitely not a character. I'm terrible with characters. That's why they don't give me characters. So I would choose a starship, a spaceship, and it would be, I would say, an obscure one. We all know Alphabet Squadron, right? Y-wing, X-wing, A-wing, B-wing. But I'm pretty sure not a lot know the D-wing. And the D-wing only shows up in The Rise of Skywalker. This will be a bit of my ego probably. I happen to design the D-wing for the movie, so I want to illustrate it out for the Fantasy Flight games.
That's so cool.
But, we'll see. That's the only thing I'll say.
I am really happy with the commissions I get because they always ask me to draw creatures, monsters, and aliens, so I cannot complain. I'm just so happy with that. I cannot ask for more, because I love nature and animals and fauna, and being able to create this kind of alien-like fauna, for me, is like a dream come true, so I cannot ask for more.
Okay. Yeah, that's where we have to say that our artistic director are really eager to put the most give me a dictionary, please. To have the good amount of different commissions. You have one ship, one creature, one character, one iconic character, one obscure character. So it's very, very balanced. Thank you. And But if I had to choose someone, I have to choose something.
Yeah.
Really?
Choose, not choose. Exactly.
I wanted to make a wrong call, but Steve told me that it wasn't available anymore. So for now. But maybe in the future. But I love everything with Star Wars. So I'm always happy, whatever is the subject.
Exactly.
Really.
Hey, you guys all do such a great job in the game. Really appreciate you guys answering, putting us into your process a little bit today. One last round of applause for the artists of Star Wars Limited. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you out on the board.